Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Just with Dara. This is season 5, episode 1. It's been a pretty long time since I've recorded. I know it's been like 4 months, almost, yeah, about 4 months. And I know that I said I was going to come back like beginning of October, but then just like a lot of things with school and like it was just really hard like balancing all that together. But I've kind of like got myself to where like, well, sort of like got myself to where I'm like, okay, I think I can get back into recording now, especially because like after this, like I think I only have like 3 more weeks before like Christmas break. So hopefully it'll be fine. I can like be more consistent. I don't know if it's gonna be like every Saturday. I hope for it to be, but I'm not 100% sure on that yet. But I'm gonna try my best for it to be. And yeah, but this is an episode, as you guys can tell by the titles, right? So we're talking about how this is not the oppression Olympics, which I'm going to go into more detail of exactly what I mean by that later on. But I'm really excited for this episode because I've kind of had the idea for like a few months now, like actually since I ended season 4, so like around May. And as you guys can see probably like in the description, but I have two guests with me. I have two guests who also have their own podcast. And since May, I knew that I wanted to ask the both of them to be on it. So yeah, I'm just really excited that we were able to do this. But you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ayoka and I'm from Mind Elixir podcast. On my podcast, I basically just talk about teen mental health, social issues, and really anything else that interests me. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Destiny. I'm the host of Melanated and Educated. I talk a lot about representation in media, books, things like that. I also talk about the teen experience.
Okay, yeah. So basically, like as you guys can tell with like what their podcast kind of talk about, that's kind of like why I knew I wanted to ask them to come on this because I feel like all our podcasts are similar in a sense of like kind of like what we talk about. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this, like I said. So where the episode idea like actually came from. So like I'm not sure if this phrase like oppression Olympics has been used before because like I heard one of my friends use it when I was like talking to her because we were kind of talking about this and like I was telling her how I wanted to do like an episode on it, but I didn't know how to like phrase it. And then she had said this, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. But then I also heard someone else say it, so then I was like, oh, maybe it's like already a thing. I'm not really sure. But besides the point though. But yeah, so basically it just kind of goes in with like because we were talking about like how it's annoying when we hear people trying to like compete almost when it comes to like how oppressed they are or the different reasons why they may be oppressed. And it just kind of like it's like we're gonna like I said, we're gonna talk about this like more in depth later on, like when we really start into the episode. But it's just like just in general with people like, oh, I experienced this and I experienced this and that, and trying to like one up other people with their like struggles type thing. So that was really where this episode came from. And then yeah, but then also with I put an important note that I wanted to make though is that this episode isn't meant to like take away from the experiences of anyone at all, but we simply wanted to make people aware of the dangers that can come from like from quote competing on said oppression. And so with that, we'll just go into the episode notes and kind of like the prompts and stuff. But before, well, okay, well, like the first prompt really is intersectionality. Like, what exactly is it? Because that's going to be like a term that's going to come up a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and give the like dictionary definition for that, which is the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. And then another definition that I like as well was intersectionality is an analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. And intersectionality identifies multiple factors of advantage and disadvantage. But yeah, so that's really just what intersectionality is. It's kind of just like with like one person like being coupled together with like multiple different groups of like where they may face oppression or may have like a disadvantage to certain things in society, into society, or may have like an advantage. And I guess an example of that is I can say, so obviously like I'm a black person, right? And not only am I a black person, but like I'm also a black woman. So that's like two different areas of where like I may face like discrimination for not only being a black person in America, but then also for being a female. So yeah, that's kind of an example. And then there's like more there's like other things that can add to it. But yeah. Okay, and then I'll go ahead to the next problem, which I'll let one of you guys answer on first. But so when would you guys say that this like new wave of everyone wanting to like be oppressed in some way or another came up?
For me, I think I've experienced it from when I was like a lot younger. Like I'm a senior in high school and I noticed it a lot with like cishet white males at my school from a very young age. And so it would be weird because they'd be talking about something like completely random, and then you come into the conversation and it'd be something like, I'd never date a black girl, I'd never do this. And then it would be something like, oh, that's why it's gonna be so easy for you to get into college because, everyone wants to pick you, everyone wants to do things. Like if you get an award, it's not because you're smart, it's because, oh, like they have a quota to fill.
Mhm.
And then I feel like some people kind of mellowed out, like some people that I know kind of mellowed out, or it was not even like more mellow, but like more silent. Like maybe they realized that wasn't really okay to say, but it was something they still thought. And then I remember it kind of came back to me when I was watching Ginny and Georgia. And I don't know if
Mm.
any of you guys watched that
Yeah,
show.
I watched it.
I remember the scene between Hunter, who is like, for context, he's this biracial character, but he's white and Asian, and then the main character Ginny is black and white, and they're like competing with each other to see who's more of their own
Yeah.
culture, and they're like
Mhm.
insulting each other. And I felt like that was like what I think a lot of people think of when they think of oppression Olympics, not just because they're competing and trying to see who has it worse, but also because they literally say it in the scene. But I feel like I have seen that, like I'll complain of not like I'll talk about something that's important to me, and like as a Black American, like I don't have a super huge connection with like the country that I'm from because I don't know it. And so I'll talk about something like that and someone will be like, oh, well, like it's really hard for me too because of the country where I'm from. And then I'm like, okay, like those are two different issues though, and they don't have to be competing with one another. They can just both be issues that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
you
that's
can go.
such a great point you brought up about Ginny and Georgia with how people will try to compare their like the oppression that they face and try to say, okay, I have it worse because of this. But I think the thing that people sometimes forget is that oppression or like the different identities we have that can contribute to oppression, as in like the prejudice and discrimination that someone may face. It isn't like an additive thing. It isn't like, oh my gosh, you're black, so you have more oppression than someone that's this.
Mhm.
It's more of like how those different identities are interconnected and how they're interacting with how as you like navigate the world.
Definitely. And I think one other thing that I noticed this a lot was during like 2020 when like a lot of protests were going on for Black Lives Matter. And I noticed like people who I thought were very supportive were like weirdly jealous. And I think it was really weird because they were like, no one's paying attention to us. And I was like, the thing is, like, you didn't care about any of the issues with any of the people in your race or your ethnicity until someone else was getting attention. And that's what threw me off.
Exactly.
Because of course, I'm going to repost these things. Of course, I'm going to highlight them. But if you don't say anything until it's time for someone else to speak up, then it's weird. And then even with Black Panther, the first one coming out and the second one coming out, I have heard like a lot of complaints on the internet, like not within my friends, thankfully, but a lot of complaints of people being like, why aren't we being represented? Or like even so in the second Black Panther, there is like indigenous Latin representation. And I saw like a bunch of complaints from like white Hispanics saying like we are not being represented and it's not fair and things like that. And it was like, okay, well, you can make your own movie. It's okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I also think that it kind of like I would say like I also think that like it got like more on the rise, so to speak, in 2020, like during like the Black Lives Matter protests and things like that, because that like came with like a lot of people like wanting to, like you kind of said, like then like talking about issues that they faced as well and saying like why isn't this getting enough attention, things like that. And it's like the thing is it's not that it's getting like that it's not getting attention per se, it's more that it's like right now like where like a substantial like problem is like with this certain community, so that's like why a lot of attention was being put on that. Not to say that it's taking away from any experiences that other people have faced or anything like that, and that's just like something that I feel like a lot of people like need to like start understanding. And then it also just kind of like goes with how like yeah, just like how you were saying um with one, they're only like having like an issue with it, so to speak, now because another group is getting attention, not because it seems like they really like cared in the first place, so to speak. So I think that's also like where my issue lies with a lot of people is like when they try to like it's just like I feel like it's like that one upping thing again, trying to like be like, oh well, I'm experiencing this too, or like I'm facing this too. It's just, I guess I would say it gets tiring, I would say. And I mean, yeah, I definitely think that it happens a lot with like when different like things of media are put out, like movies or TV shows or anything like that, and then other people may start saying like, well, how come we're not seeing this or it's not seeing that? But it's like I feel like in this certain moment in time, it's like um it's okay to like celebrate the, I don't know how to put this, but like it's okay to like, I don't know like what I'm trying, like I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't really know how to put it into words. But I guess what I'm saying is that like it's okay to celebrate like what's being like put out right now, and then it's like I don't know how to phrase what I'm saying. I really don't know how to phrase what I'm saying. My bad. I'm just gonna, it'll probably come to me later on and I'll like re-say it. But yeah, I agree with what both of you guys said though.
I think I kind of get what you're saying if it's what I think you're saying.
Mhm.
Like, it's okay to be happy about something that's happening now and
Yeah.
still like that for your community. Maybe.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, that's actually what exactly I'm saying. Thank you. Because like I couldn't put it into words, but yes, that's exactly what I was saying.
Okay,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, okay. And then the next prompt is, so how does this take away from the real experiences of others? Which we kind of like touched on, but like if you guys want to touch on that a little bit more.
You gonna go first or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll go. So yeah, I think what you guys were saying earlier was so right because I would notice that people would often bring up the Black Lives Matter movement whenever it came to other issues that other marginalized communities would face. They'd say, okay, you guys did this for Black Lives Matter. Why aren't you doing it for so and so? Or they'd replace the B in Black Lives Matter with other marginalized groups that were facing oppression. And I think that like you can go and support Black Lives Matter without trying to, you can go and support your own causes without diminishing another cause
Exactly.
or trying to change the focus of it.
Yeah.
And another thing I noticed, like you guys were saying as well, was that during quarantine 2020, 2021, that time period, especially on social media, I noticed that there was this one actual there's this one TikTok trend where people said, okay, I went into quarantine like this and I came out of quarantine being able to say all these slurs. And to me, that just shows how these people, they really just like they collected oppression like oppression points. They're like, okay, one being able to say this one slur, it's like they collected it like Pokemon cards. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it was just a fun game to them.
Yes, I completely forgot about that. You just like a part of my mind, but I literally remember like seeing this person be like at the beginning of quarantine, like I was this blonde haired girl, da, 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 and then they come out and they're like, now, um, like they're just talking about their gender identity and stuff, but it's like that's fine. But then it's like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really weird to diminish your identity by saying you're a slur. Like I would never call myself a slur as my identity.
Yeah, like reducing your identity down to a slur, like,
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so crazy. Like that's really mind-boggling to me. Like I feel like you don't even like some people I feel like you don't even feel that way for real. You just want to be able to say a bad word and you knew you couldn't do it
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
That's exactly true. I think it goes in with that like people like wanting to like, I don't know if I should like say it this way, but like people wanting to be like included in a sense, and like but like
Yeah.
being included like in the wrong way. Like so it's like it just doesn't really make sense because it's like you want to be like, I feel like a lot of people maybe think that like they don't have enough like issues facing them or something like that. So they'll just try to like, not, I don't want to say like come up with it. It's not necessarily like coming up with, but like I guess like pinpointing on these things to like just like, yeah, just like trying to like be that like included thing, but it's like it's included in the wrong way and it doesn't really make sense. And I think it really just does more harm than good, honestly, because it doesn't really bring that much like, and they may think that like in a way they're trying to like bring more attention to like whatever cause it is, but at the same time it can end up being worse than it was. So that's just kind of something that I feel like people should keep in mind when it comes to them trying to like you were saying, like collecting like oppression points. So um yeah. But okay, and then okay, in what ways have you guys like personally heard like people like competing, so to speak, on how oppressed they are?
Um, I know that I have heard like different things based on like not okay, so I'm gonna give like a little background. I go to a predominantly Black school. This was not always the case, so it was kind of like really nice for me to have that community. And so some of the kids who I go into middle school, my middle school is predominantly white. So some of these uh kids who were not Black were not very happy. Um, and you know, you want your community, that's fine. And so I remember like like you did okay. I remember I was talking to someone, like one of my best friends. She had gone on like a science fair trip. And she was talking about how while she was there, one of our classmates, one of our white classmates was talking about how like ghetto the school was and how he was like the only white kid and how he struggled so much and he didn't have any friends. Mind you, that wasn't true at all. Like he had a bunch of friends. Everyone thought he was gonna end up going to like an HBCU because of how many Black friends he had and like how like in touch he seemed to feel with everybody there. And then he was, I don't know if it's just because he was around people he felt like he could be more comfortable with because they didn't look like us. But it was like a really crazy switch up. And he was talking about how much he like couldn't stand the school, but he would never have said that to any of our faces.
Mhm.
And that's not like the first time that's happened either, like with people like dissing our school basically because it's predominantly Black, like, and people won't say it like, oh my gosh, those Black kids, da, 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 da. But like I've heard things like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not really a student there because I couldn't stand it, like can't stand the kids up there because our school is like a program within a bigger school and the bigger school is predominantly Black, but like both schools are. But
Mhm.
anyways, I it's like a whole thing. And I'm like, guys, you know that your diploma is gonna say both schools on it, right? Like you don't get that. And so like people will be really like snarky and make all these snide comments about like how they can't wait to get out of here because they don't feel like they're seeing things like that. And I don't know if it's just because they're not used to being in a place where they're not the main people in charge. Because I guess that can be weird, especially when like socially that's all you've ever been conditioned to know is being the big dog, you know what I mean? But I've heard so many complaints and like weird microaggressions towards like not just me, but like other kids of color at my school from these white kids who are like, I should be in charge, like I should be the main one here, I shouldn't be by myself. And it's like kind of weird. So I'm like, it's kind of confusing to me personally because I'm like, I don't think I'd ever react this way. I didn't react this way when I wasn't the majority at a school.
Mhm.
And so it's almost a little bit immature to me. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something I kind of noticed that with oppression, it's like the I guess so. I'm trying to think of how to say this. So I guess the non-oppressed group, they may like take certain traits from the oppressed group that they see as like fun or appealing. For
Yes.
example, I guess you could say like with blackfishing, they a white person, for example, they may have the super dark tan, lip injections, curly hair, all of that. But at the end of the day, they can wash that all off. They can get it taken out. But Black people, actual Black people, they're going to face oppression, discrimination, stereotypes, and all of that for having those features and things about them. Or how some people will want to say a slur, but it's like, okay, are you facing oppression because of this? Like, will you actually be called this ever in your life? You just want to say this just for fun.
Oh my gosh, this reminds me of what Dara was saying earlier about like people wanting to feel included because I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
that woman in the NAACP and everyone found
Yes,
why
yes,
Oh, she
bro.
was faking
Yes,
being
I can't
Black.
remember her name, but yes, that was
it was like Rachel something. I remember that and both of what you guys just said like connected in my mind and I was like,
She had everybody bamboozled.
yes,
yes.
yeah, Rachel Dolezal. Yeah, I think that was her last name. But yeah, I definitely agree with like what both of you said because it's like I don't even get it because like that's why I hate when like things like that like start becoming like a trend type thing, and then it's like you were saying like you can like wash that stuff off at the end of the day, like and you're not gonna have to like go around like your everyday life with that. Whereas like for us, and you know, for other people like in their like it's like that's like who we are type thing and it's like we
Mm-hmm.
can't wash it off like we have to go through like
24/7.
exactly that's like an everyday thing for us so it's like the like struggles that we may face like in our life or whatever like we may face that like throughout but it's like just for someone to come in and be like oh I'm gonna be this for like a day or whatever I'm like that doesn't really make sense and like
It's like a fun little game to them,
yeah and that's
like
why I
a
just feel
costume.
exactly that's the like the issue because they see it as a costume and it's like it's not a costume like I don't know it's just it's really frustrating but yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen, I don't know if it's Sweden or Norwegian. It's like this like Christmas trend.
The holiday
Yeah,
where they do blackface.
yes, and they have like
Oh my
those
God.
like scary old cartoon lit like you know what I'm talking about? And I'm like,
Yes.
this
Oh,
is
I've
literally
never heard
I
of
feel like
that.
that people do and don't see a problem with. And then it's also like people literally dress up as us for Halloween. Like I like there's just so much just like what?
I know. Yeah.
And people will be trying to excuse it, saying that it's tradition. And I'm like, okay, yeah,
Okay.
maybe get a new tradition because
Right.
this
I
isn't gonna
know.
work.
Like
Especially if like your cult tradition or whatever has like racial like origins and racial like intentions to like be racist as like a joke or whatever, then you can't just like keep playing it off as like, oh, it's tradition, because it's like obviously that's
It
not
needs
like,
to go.
yeah, like it's not like with good intentions or anything, so it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, I remember one time when I like kind of in a way like heard like people trying to like compete, so to speak, was like, so when like the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020 like really started, like I was ending eighth grade at the time, but it was like obviously like quarantine because like the pandemic and stuff, so I wasn't necessarily in school. And in a sense, I'm kind of glad that I wasn't in school at the time, because I feel like I would have got like so pissed off with like a lot of things that like I would have heard people saying, because mine was kind of the same, like with you, Destiny, how you said that like your school before high school was like more up was a predominantly white school, and that was the same for my middle school, but now my high school is predominantly black. But anyways, though, um and I remember it was like also during this time, like I remember there were more people that were like, there were like a lot of like Trump supporters or whatever.
okay.
And yeah, and so it was like with us like black students like at the school that were like talking about like, oh, like, like Black Lives Do Matter, and like this issue like is like really hard for us or whatever. And then like I think it was like one person, like I heard this like one, or I think it was maybe two, I'm not really sure, but one or two like white students would say like said something along the lines of like, oh, but like people judge us for like supporting Trump, and like trying to like use that as like, oh, but like we're discriminated against because we support Trump. And I was like, that's not the same thing. Like I don't that's not the same thing at all. Like you can't like, because like when you walk out, people don't like look at you and like automatically know like, oh, you support Trump. But like if I'm walking out, like people know I'm a black person by me just like walking out, you know what I mean? And that's the same for any other black person ever. And like I just didn't really get it, because they were like saying it as if it was like a real thing of like, oh, but like that's not fair when um like just because I support Trump, like people hit on me all the time and they think that's okay or whatever. But
What?
like, and I was really confused, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then like I also wasn't, well, I'm still not really confrontational, so I just didn't really say anything.
Mhm.
But I know like in my head I was just really like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then like I don't know, but that's like one of the times that I can remember specifically, like of someone trying to like compete, even though that's not even that even like actually makes sense though, and neither was that like a legitimate thing to try to compare with other people, but um they did try. And it's the same way with like in seventh grade we went like on a Washington DC trip, and because like I said I was at like a predominantly white school, so like one person bought like a MAGA hat, and then it ended up being like our whole like bus full. It's just like of all these kids with their like red hats. And like my friend and I were like, this is so crazy. Like we're really happy to walk around with these people. Like this is so like wow. And then like because we kept saying that, like one of our like friends like got mad at us because like we were saying that like, oh, like we were surprised that they were like actually going around wearing that. And she got like really, really mad, and just like I don't even know. I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of goes in with those things of like I don't really understand how they're trying to use like them supporting Trump as president or whatever, and comparing that to the issues that the black community faces. They're comparing it loosely, I guess,
Mhm.
but
It's
still
still a
comparing nonetheless. Yeah. So
I actually have a similar story, but like it's okay. It was a little weird. It was like during the beginning of quarantine, so like when the protests were happening and everything like that. And I remember this girl. She was like my friend at the time. She was this girl. Okay, so she was a white girl, but like you couldn't call her that or else she would cry. And this actually happened. Like
what?
I'm so it's like she was like race just freaks me out. Like I don't know. I feel like
What?
I'm so divided and I just can't do this, Stephanie. I just can't. because I was like, listen, this was like a couple years ago because we were in middle school when I talked to her and I was like, listen, I am Black. You are not. And you can't say some things you say to me. Because, okay, so we were talking about how both of our parents were separated, right? And so she looks at me and she says, do you know who your dad is? I said, yes, I just told you he doesn't live with my mom.
Huh?
Like we were just talking about how our parents aren't together anymore. And then you're gonna ask me if I know one of them. And I was like, listen, you can't do this. So we cannot. And then what was weirder to me is that like I wasn't her first Black friend or like her first friend who wasn't white. And so it like was weird. But that was like that's a different thing. But so we get to high school, right? And the protests are happening, and I was kind of upset because I was like, I don't get why you're not like you talk to me about how much you care about Black Lives Matter and things like that, but you haven't posted anything. You've been posting about like your time on the beach and things like that. Mind you, we're still in the middle. We're at the very start of the pandemic when we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So like, are you at the beach? Like, first of all, just stay home. You have a baby, like you have a baby brother, a baby, and you're like, let me put myself out in the wild, no mask, bare booty faced, and then go home to my family when I have a baby in my family. So that was
Putting
like,
him at risk.
I'm
Exactly.
like, this is
That's
already
pretty selfish.
But like, I was just wondering, like, you're really like you're really active on social media. You have more followers than me, and it's clear you care about this. Like, why won't you post anything? And she was like, well, like a lot of my like followers are like Trump supporters, and I just don't want to make anyone mad, and I don't want to lose followers.
Yikes.
She really said that I don't want to lose followers.
She did, and that was her main driving point. And I was like, okay. And I did not talk to her after that. It's been what, 3 years? Because I'm like, this is actually crazy. Like, people are dying, and you're trying to get to 999 followers on Instagram. Okay,
Like priorities?
I know. Set your
not
priorities straight.
at all. Like, I don't know how you made your to-do list this morning, but I need you to rearrange some stuff.
Okay, that's crazy. I just feel like, yeah, there's a lot of people who like do and say stuff like that. Same with like some people who like would um like who I think I heard like some people like on like June 2nd or like they posted like the black square, right? But then like they like had like some backlash from like some of their like other white followers and then like white people I mean. And then like that I went to school with and then they would like archive the post and like just like accidentally never happened because like they were I guess like ashamed of like posting about it or whatever. Then again, same thing with like how some people like would post about it just because other people posted about it, not because they actually believed it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of goes with everything.
I just think these cannot be the same people whose white parents were sitting at like those diner tables with you in protest. Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, and I know me, mom, pop aren't always the nice people, but like somebody here had to have a grandparent in the civil rights movement, and y'all just don't care.
I know. It's crazy.
And the thing about those black squares was that was like the most performatively activism thing that somebody could do. So the fact that
Honestly.
some people were getting scared over that, it's like
Literally
okay,
like
how bad is it?
Exactly, because
Like it's literally a black square and everyone was doing it.
Meant it didn't really mean anything to post, honestly, because
Yeah.
like and then some people like you said, so like it literally was the most most performatively active
It was
could have
like just
happened.
people doing something so that they could feel better. Same with people, they'll just like
Exactly.
repost a bunch of infographics on the story, but they don't even read the infographic. It's just like
Exactly.
they're like,
No,
okay, this
literally.
looks cute. Repost,
Exactly. It has
repost.
this title of like, and then they just start reposting it. And like you said, I doubt those people read half of what it says anyways.
No,
But yeah.
imagine like you click on one of their posts and then you go like 3 slides in and they're like, this was a test. Like if you made it
Psych, I lied.
like, me like I just think that's so funny. Like, and then some people, I remember when I was posting like a lot of my story about stuff that I had read and like stuff that was important to me and my friends.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can't talk to you anymore. Like, I just feel like we have nothing to talk about.
Oh
Wait, are you
no.
serious?
I am so serious. They were like, yeah, Destiny, you kind of scare me. Like, you're so political. Mind you, I was like, guys, I don't think people who look like me should die.
Literally, that's all you're saying. Like, what?
And they were like, yeah, like, you're just so unapproachable all of a sudden. Like, I think quarantine just really changed you. And I was like, oh, this is
Wow.
crazy.
And the thing is, it'll be like a basic statement that people take as radical.
I
Like
know.
people will always say something that is like should be considered human rights is like too radical, too left, too much of this. But the thing is, even Martin Luther King back then, I was saying this in one of my episodes, even he was considered radical.
Right.
So like And now everybody loves him. Like a bunch of conservatives saying, okay, everyone should be like Martin Luther King and all
Yes,
of that.
including him to me. Like, I remember, like, I was like a fight, guys. I don't fight, but I got into a little tizzy with somebody on
Ooh. No, because me
And
too.
Susie.
Me too.
and they were like, "Don't you remember your forefather? And okay, he would not want this." He would
No,
not
because
want
back in
like,
quarantine,
violence.
I would be in the comment sections, 50 plus replies.
No, bro. I would definitely be typing away. Like, you cannot stop
Yeah.
this.
I get what you mean. I get what you
Like
mean.
I
for
had
sure.
nothing else to do.
No, literally, might as well type away, bro. Arguing with people online.
I remember someone DM me like, "Do you want to have a civil conversation?"
Oh,
I'm ready.
not the Discord
Look at
debates.
the water. They were like, "Talk about the Western world," and I was like, "I know you don't know this, but you know Mexico's in North America, right? Like, you know it's part of America, right?" And they were like, "That doesn't count as Western." I was like, "Look at a map, baby. I don't care."
Like northeast, west. Hello?
Like if you want to say white people, just say that. But I know where Mexico is, and apparently you know.
That was like that actually reminded me because there was at this time as well, like I was like also like getting really annoyed. So I remember like all the like people from middle school that like would be such like avid like Trump supporters. I was like, you know what? At this point in time, how can you still support this man? So
Right.
like
Literally.
so I texted this one girl and I was like, okay, I'm not trying to like hate on you or anything, but like I'm just genuinely wondering like how do you still support him? Like I just want to have like a conversation because like I just don't get it.
Right.
And then she said something like, well, you know, the economy, taxes, you know.
What?
And I was like,
It's
okay,
always
girly. I
the
was like,
economy.
it's always the economy, bro. It's
You have
always the
right.
economy. And then I
He
was
doesn't
like,
want you to pay money. How?
literally.
What is taxes gonna do for you?
And then
He doesn't
I
want you to
was
have.
like, okay, so like, how do you feel about like his comments like towards women and his comments like towards like the black community and other like communities of people of color and like things like that? And literally her response was, "We're not adults. I don't really want to talk about this right now." And I was like, okay, basically just say that you know you're wrong. Like just say that, okay? And she was basically just like, yeah, like we should even be caring about this anyways, because like we can't even vote. And I was like, okay.
We're
And
about
then I just
to.
didn't respond because I was like, girl, so annoying. I mean, like, it was just yeah. I was like, okay. I literally at that point I was actually really annoyed because I was like I know like in seventh grade that was like 2019 whatever. We were like joking, ha ha ha, you support Trump, that's crazy, but ha ha ha, right? But like at this point in time, I was like, you still supporting this man is baffling, like literally so mind-boggling. Like, why do you still support him? Like, I was just getting angry because I was like, it's not even funny anymore. Like, I'm like actually mad. Like, why do you still support him?
Like
So
the fact that people were hyping up his re-election campaign because he's trying to run again. That made about to go.
literally,
You want him in charge of your laws? I don't
Literally.
understand it.
I know.
Like I'm so done. But
I'm so
next year I'm gonna be able to vote. So
Me too. Oh my gosh.
oh yeah. Wait, are you 18 or 17? Because I know you're a senior. Wait, I couldn't hear you.
I'm 17.
Oh, okay. Me too.
Oh my gosh, we're like twins.
Oh, I'm 16, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. No,
Um,
but like I know some of my people, like not my people, not my people, guys.
I was
Ooh,
like, oh,
let me separate myself.
Let me exclude myself from the conversations. I know some of my peers are probably gonna post. Like even yesterday, my mom was voting in our like local, not local, but like our government, like you know, like stuff like that, like those kind of elections, because we had reruns. Because I live in a place where people don't understand that just because someone is like, oh my gosh. So I'm gonna expose myself a little bit here. Herschel Walker is running for office.
Oh, we live in the same place then.
Oh my gosh, twin! Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh, Georgia.
Wait, where is that?
It's in Georgia, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't even know about Georgia, so
So for people who don't know who Herschel Walker is, honestly, I'm so happy for you, but I'm gonna ruin that. He is this man who is like he's a black Republican and he basically is just a liar. Like from the jump. Like he said he graduated from UGA. He has no diploma there.
Didn't he say he was a police officer and he wasn't, bro? Like this is just lying. Like
no, he said that snake oil could cure COVID-19 if you put it, if you rubbed it all on your body.
what?
Then,
That's like Trump saying you could inject Lysol or whatever.
exactly what he said. Inject bleach into your body.
he said that he had family values. First of all, if you don't know who Christian if you haven't heard of Christian Walker, he's like this internet guy who hates black people even though he's black.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Even though he's gay, and that's actually his dad.
Oh yeah, his son was exposing him a lot though.
Yes, he was like, we had to move like 6 times in 6 months because you threatened to kill me and my mom. Like, I'm sorry, that was so triggering. Like, I'm sorry about that, guys. But like he was talking about the abuse that he faced at the hands of Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker said he's pro-family, anti-abortion, but there's like actually receipts of him like handing someone abortion money because he didn't want to have a baby with her.
Yeah,
And
literally.
he gave her like a get well soon card and was like, "Don't tell anyone about this." But she did because that's weird. And like he was doing all these crazy things, and then he doesn't know what early voting is. There was a recent video where he didn't know that you could vote early, and then he said that people didn't need that much time, and they should just do it and get it over with. Then they didn't need to wait. And this man is just a little bit wonky, and he is running for campaign, and there has been a runoff because
Literally,
people.
I don't get that. I don't get that. Like when I heard that, I was like, bro, what? Like it just doesn't even make sense. Like how can people be that stupid to like actually vote for him? And also the whole thing in Georgia, like where you can't like round up, because wasn't Warnock's was like I forgot what the number was, but like if like if you round it, it would have been 50%, but like it has to be 50 or over. That's also kind of crazy to me. I feel like that's like purposeful, but whatever.
I just have so many bones to pick with everyone who voted for him just so that way Warnock wouldn't be in office because it first of all it just makes it look like a whole ignoramus. Everyone knows you don't do your research. Even if you do your research, everyone knows you don't actually care about this state, this country. You only care about your party. You don't care about what he actually stands for because he doesn't even really stand for your party. It's just a bit too much. You guys are the people who are like, no, liberals. But like I feel like you don't understand what anything actually stands for and you're just mad and petty. And like I was saying, my mom was voting yesterday and she had like a racist encounter with like this old white guy because he was like, oh, like basically there was like okay, so he was like ancient, I guess. Not ancient, that's not nice. He was like 80 something, and so there's like an advanced line for people who were like over 75, but it was closed because the wait was the same because of how packed it was because it was like first thing in the morning. And so then he saw somebody else go over there, like go inside, and it was like this old black man to get like a mask, and he was like, "So you can only go inside if you're black, huh?" And so basically, he was just saying all these weird things, and he was like cutting in line and like diminishing my mom and these other two ladies. And my mom was like, "This is the reason we have to vote because people like him are gonna come out and they're gonna show you who they are, and they're gonna do what they want to do."
Yeah. I feel like I don't know. It's confusing because it's like I guess like how you were saying people just like vote for like like a lot of Republicans just vote for party. That's definitely true. But because like but at least some people I know are like realizing otherwise. Because I know some people like their parents are Republicans and they said that like obviously like even though they're Republicans like they're like not stupid enough to like vote for Herschel Walker because it's like it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And what I don't even get with it though is that it's like you were saying like it's not even like he really stands for like with the party because it's like what does he really stand for though like I haven't really like looked into it that
Yeah.
much but like for yeah like like from what I've seen it's just kind of like why are you even running though like I just don't it just seems like a joke to me and that's why like I'm really confused about it and then like it's funny because then I hear like other people say things like oh yeah like we should vote for him because like he like played football for like UGA and stuff and it's like football is all you care about, like football, bro. Like that's your reasoning for voting for someone. Like, let's be for real. And so, yeah, it's just weird. I don't know. It's definitely annoying though, because like I said, when I heard that Warnock didn't win, I couldn't. I was just really like confused because I was like, and these are the adults that are like leading my state. This doesn't make sense, but okay. Yeah, okay, but going back with the episode though, so with the next prompt, just this is the second to last one. But when comparing different groups, wait, when comparing different oppressed groups of people's experiences, a lot of times people may begin to discredit someone else's experiences and how is discrediting someone else's experiences harmful? And we kind of already touched on this before,
Mhm.
but I guess like maybe we can just like go a little bit more in depth with it. But yeah, just like the discrediting thing.
I think an excellent example of this would be like with the model minority myth about how people say that a Asian specifically, I think East Asian and South
Mhm.
Asian people, if they can succeed, then why can't Black people succeed?
Mhm.
But that actually, whenever they're discrediting that, well, there's a reason it's a myth because it's not true. And then also it ignores the fact that they're still facing discrimination and
Exactly.
different prejudices. And yeah, and I think it also diminishes Black people's experiences because it's saying, okay, you guys don't actually face oppression. You guys are just making it up. If they can succeed, why can't you?
I think this is really interesting you brought that up because I remember I used to be obsessed with this show called Adam Ruins Everything. I swear by that show. I think it's so fun. It's like he basically explains like the history of like different things, and he was talking about how like the model minority myth was created like for politics basically to separate races so that way people wouldn't want to like I guess unite and like do something by
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
like different ethnicities and races against each other. And I always thought that was so interesting. And like you see it, and like, oh my gosh, now I'm like blanking on the actual examples. But I remember he was bringing up like this really popular sitcom that had it, and it was like the first like introduction of it, like culturally. And then it became like this huge thing. And I think you're totally right in that like we have two completely different issues when it comes like there are some things we're going to always have in common as marginalized groups, but so many like so much of the history of Black people in the United States versus the history of Asian people is different, and to pit like the two groups against one another just doesn't make any sense. And I also think that when it comes to what you said, like what the question was about like why it's harmful, I think it just makes nothing get done. Like if I have an issue and you have an issue, right? So imagine I'm like, guys, I just had a terrible day. And you're like, well, neither was worse. Like everything about my day was so much worse. Well, we're both gonna have bad days if no one helps each other out. Like that's just the whole.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also agree. I think the thing that you were saying, like I forgot the name of the person that you were saying now, but like how it was kind of like created to like pit people against each other. And I think that that's definitely understandable. And I think that yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I feel like a lot of times what white people like in power try to do is try to like pit other groups of people against each other so that they can't because so that they can't actually like you said like come together and like do something. So what I kind of think of though when I with this question is like when I hear a lot of times like what I hear a lot of times is like with oh like that black people should stop acting as if like slavery is like hindering what they may go through now, and they compare that with like the Holocaust and what Jewish people face and how like oh Jewish people are still succeeding and things like that. It's like why can't black people do the same thing? And I just think yeah like that again like pitting against people is just it just doesn't really make sense and it doesn't really do any good like you were saying. And then even so with that, I feel like what people don't understand is that it's like I feel like it's like people are saying that black people are still like or still using slavery to this day to like use it for reasons why they can't like get as far as they want to here in America. But it's like I feel like what people don't understand though is that it's like it's stems from slavery. Like it's not just like, oh, it's just slavery, but like it stems from slavery and it stems from all of those like racial injustices that we face throughout the like throughout history. And it's like a continuous thing. It's not just like, oh, once slavery ended, everything was all good for black people and like everything was fine. Cause like segregation still happened. Like segregation just ended like in the 60s. That was even like up until like a century ago. Like it's still happening. It's like a systemic thing. So it's like being that it's in like embedded into like the system itself, I feel like that's like what makes it harder. So it's not necessarily like, oh, we're saying like, oh, exactly like slavery is like what's doing this, but it's like it stems from that. And so because of the fact that it stems from that, that just makes it harder. So yeah, but I don't like yeah, the like comparing thing and the pitting people against it, it takes away from both people because it's saying like, oh, well, if they can do this, why can't you do this? But it's like that's not how that works. People have their different experiences, people have their different struggles. That also doesn't necessarily mean that because of slavery, every single black person is going to struggle. That also doesn't mean that because I think that's an important thing to recognize that like it doesn't mean every single person is like gonna have these issues and face these problems because obviously that's not true, but it is a fair statement to make that I don't want to say a majority, but like a large enough amount of people to talk about it are going to like face these issues due to that. So, um, but yeah, that's kind of what I've heard a lot before is like comparing with the Holocaust and like that, and then also with the model minority myth as well.
I definitely agree with that. And I also think that like even within the Black community, there's so much like hatred towards one another. If you do want to do something, like I remember there's this girl who was like, everybody wants to be a stylist, everybody wants to do something. But if someone wants to make money, I mean, let them make money. If they want to do somebody's lashes, if they want to do somebody's hair, let them do it. And I feel like it's really easy to be picked down by other people, but especially like people who you trust, and you're like, well, if they don't think I can do it, I can't do it. I won't do it. And so then it's also just because of like you don't want someone to get their hopes up, like because the system's gonna like knock you down. So you block people from doing the things they want to do. And it's not right. But it's something that like a lot of people do. And so when you wonder why some black people might not be as successful as they want to be or they can be, yes, it is systemic, but it's also community wise. Because of the system, people have lost hope to do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, Destiny. And what you're saying about like within communities, it's like people will talk about people of color solidarity, like, different groups of people of color coming together to fight racism against white supremacy and all that. And I hope that can be a reality someday. But as of right now, we got so many issues within our own communities that we need to deal with. Like we got transphobia, homophobia, all of that, and then like misogyny,
Mhm.
and the different stereotypes and how different black people will be tearing each other down because of I don't know, like darker skin, or like if you have a curlier hair pattern or whatever, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, nappy hair and all of that. Like we still need to figure that out before we go ahead. And I think that like if we got over those issues, then it would be so much easier to start to combat white supremacy and like deconstruct that system, because like white supremacy, it's like just so far ingrained within our own community, and people don't even realize that. Like they think that the enemy is just like, just racism in general, but we have so many other issues to deal with.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting you brought up like colorism and texturism because those things are also so prevalent in other communities and it also just roots into more anti-blackness.
Yes.
I had this, she's not really my friend anymore, but like my friend's girlfriend, she's South Asian and she's like darker. Like she's not really dark skinned in the black community because she's not black, but like if you get like reference, but like in
Yeah.
the Asian community, like she would be like darker skinned. And I remember we were like on the tennis court because a lot of my friends were on the tennis team. And so basically she had like this umbrella and her mom was like, she was like, I can't get any darker. So I had to like have this, otherwise she's gonna like yell at me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
like,
Oh, sorry, continue.
you're totally fine, you can go.
I was just saying, I remember like researching on my episode about colorism, and it's so sad how like deeply ingrained colorism is within so many communities, like Asian community, Black community, Hispanic community, like people literally trying to scrub their skin to get lighter and using all these harmful skin bleaching creams and all of that. It's like really so sad.
It is. And I remember I literally went to the beauty supply store to get something for my hair. And I saw like skin bleaching cream for the first time. I didn't even know they sold that in beauty supply stores. Like I guess because I had always been raised that like my skin is beautiful and things like that. Like I never like went out and looked for it. And then I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Because like obviously, people are bleaching their skin. But I never realized like how open and available it was to just everyone to just like try and just do.
Yeah. I also agree. And when you brought that up, it kind of made me think of like two things. With one, I was actually just talking about this with a couple of my friends, like I think last Friday, like the Friday before Thanksgiving break. But
Mhm.
anyways, um, and so one of them, she's East Asian, and the other, she's South Asian, and we were like all talking about colorism and things. And it's interesting because like my East Asian friend, she was talking about how like her like how in her culture it's like they equate like looking darker to like being like poor, like being a peasant and things
Yeah.
like that. And I think things like because she like got tanner during the summer, and then I think like maybe like a relative or something said something like along the lines of like, oh, like that she looks so dark and like now that she like looks like poor. And so it's like, yeah, just like equating that to it. And it just like shows how prevalent colorism is in like so many different groups of people and how like much of an issue it really is. And then the other thing was how one of my friends was telling me about how one of her classmates, um he's Hispanic, but like his family is like really colorist, I guess, and like also to him because he's darker, and so they'll kind of like make jokes about the fact that he's darker, I guess. And
Mhm.
then also like how they're like against him like marrying like a black person, like a black girl, because yeah, just be like it goes with that color thing because it's like if they can like be colors like towards their own child, then obviously like they're not gonna like be accepting of him like marrying someone who's even like darker than he is, obviously. So yeah, it's really sucks. And then also like I also kind of touched on this briefly like when I did an episode about colorism before, I think last year. But yeah, the bleaching thing is so prominent and it's actually crazy. Like I know so many like adults who use bleaching cream and it's I don't know, it's just really it really sucks honestly because it's like they think that like oh in order to like fit the like beauty standard they have to be lighter and
Mhm.
um yeah it's unfortunate I would say yeah.
It definitely is. And I think it also has to do with fetishization because sometimes I stumble on that word, guys. It's so bad. Um, but I've noticed this a lot, especially as I've gotten older and I have like not just like monoracial friends because for a long time that was the case and I started meeting some biracial people and like I've had different experiences and I'm not going to generalize but I know that there was this one girl who was like talking to me and she was like they like them light and I'm kind of blessed because like yes I'm like black but like I'm like she doesn't really claim being mixed. She really calls herself light skinned, but like when it comes to like things that I guess like matter to her, then she wants to be like more like open about that. And so it's something like she like brags about in a way. And I remember like when it's like about boys and stuff like that, she's like, I'm like, I remember this was like a long time ago because we had been friends for a long time. And she was talking about like this baby picture of her and she was like tan because when you're a little kid you're outside a lot and she was like oh my gosh like I looked so burnt and all of her friends are darker than her or were darker than her because some of them were not there's some drama stuff but like and it was so awkward like you could just hear like a pin drop in the room because all looking at each other like we're all like darker none of us are light skinned I'll give you that so either way the whole thing was just very odd very uncomfortable and then now she's like, yeah, like everyone discriminates against me. Not like now. This is like 2 years ago. Let me cut her some slack. But like she's like, everyone discriminates against me because I'm so pretty. Like I can't help that I can't help that I have like wavy hair. Like and like I think at first it was just weird, but I think she was also making herself more of a fetish because no one like got to know her because everyone was like, oh, she's pretty. So then like she started fitting like that. Like I'm putting this in air quotes for people who are not like watching, but like that biracial like aesthetic of like she had like colored contacts and she bleached her hair to kind of fit this image, and you can see how it's even warping her and how it warps everyone around her because everyone's getting like she's getting attention that we weren't getting. And so it was kind of like this thing of like this goes way deeper than any of us really know right now, but everyone knows that this sucks for everybody involved.
Yeah.
And so now it's kind of evolved and she's changed, she's grown, but sometimes there also be weird things where it's like because she's mixed with black and white. And this is what really got me like Ginny and Georgia might not be too far off because we were in literature class and we were talking about something and she was like, I see the side of the oppressed and the oppressor, and I just don't think that anyone should fight because everyone has their reasons for everything. And it was like very big, but it was also like very odd. And I think that sometimes by trying to be a peacekeeper, like this is just in general, this is not about this girl. And trying to be a peacekeeper, you actually like make the problems just try to like go away, which is kind of almost like worse or equal to just saying like your problem is worse.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think that can happen sometimes. Like people like intend for good, but sometimes it may come out like without the like effect that they may have wanted, and then it ends up being like worse. But yeah, I get that.
Yeah, because like sometimes whenever you ignore the problem, it just allows it to grow. It kind of reminds me of how some people will just be like, okay, I'm centering everything in politics. I'm not for this issue. I'm not against this issue. I'm just in the middle. I'm so median because they're trying to appease to everyone. But you can't try to appease to everyone. You can't just be like, sometimes it's you have to choose a side and pick on an issue because some issues there is no compromising. It's like, okay, you're either doing this extreme thing or not doing something. It's either human rights or no human rights and discrimination, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like everyone wants to be Switzerland, but I think they don't understand like the reason why Switzerland is so neutral? Because they have war training, like mandatory war training for every 21-year-old, and no one wants to get into a war with them.
Oh, I never knew that. Actually,
Like
yeah, it's interesting.
even the most neutral country isn't really neutral. Everyone's just scared of it.
Hmm.
Okay, so the last prompt is, why is it important to note that a differing characteristic of someone does not automatically make them oppressed? And this kind of like goes in with what I was saying earlier, where it's not like to say that like every single black person is gonna struggle like because of slavery, or like another group of people like all of them are gonna struggle because of like this certain thing that happened, or that all of them are like now like oppressed for like the rest of their lives, and they're all gonna like always face discrimination. Because I feel like that just like puts like such a damper on things, and kind of like sets this like negative tone. Because like I said, it's important to acknowledge that like these things may happen and things like that, but I also think that if people start saying that like for sure and no matter what you're gonna like face these issues or whatever, then it's just, I don't know, I feel like it sets a pattern for younger people that like they're gonna, but they feel like they can't like escape it, if that makes sense. But yeah, like still important to acknowledge it obviously, and like let people know like this may happen. Just like I just don't think that it should be a thing where we're like trying to ingrain in like the minds of like younger people that no matter what, and for certain they're gonna like have this issue. But yeah.
I think the oppression you face depends on who's in your corner and who's in your environment.
Mhm.
And like, if your community is supportive, if your family is supportive, then obviously you're going to face challenges in the real world if it comes to that, but you're going to have so much more confidence in yourself and the people around you that it might not affect you as much as someone who's been alone their entire life, been picked on their entire life by the people that are supposed to love them and care for them the most.
Mhm.
And that the way you're raised and the way people treat you initially is definitely going to change your outlook on the world and how you take being treated a certain way.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of societal factors that can contribute to it because okay, wait, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Okay, so there's a lot of societal factors that can contribute to like how you view oppression, especially with like what you learn, who you engage with. Like for example, if you live in a predominantly white area, or if you live in a predominantly black area, and who's around you, like if your mother was like maybe raised by colorists and she starts to ingrain those colorist ideals on you, and you start to hate your darker skin, and you like internalize that, like internalize colorism or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that also, like, yeah, what you're saying makes sense with how, like, if you're raised by someone who is, I guess, like maybe like projecting like things that they've like experienced onto you and kind of like making you start thinking that way as well, then that would add into like how they would end up living their everyday lives. But yeah, that was the last prompt. But do you guys like have anything else that you kind of want to say? I don't really have anything else, but
Yes, I do. I want to
okay.
say, people can change. So these people I've talked about, yes, they've had crazy things go on, but like I'm not gonna say that they're gonna be ignorant forever or racist forever or colors forever. I do believe people can change, some people don't. I think that if you learn more, you'll know more, you'll change your opinions. And it's okay if you change your opinions, it's okay if you realize that you were wrong, because I've realized that I've been wrong. Probably not about such things like as big as what we talked about, but you kind of have to take it like a champ and realize it's okay if you're embarrassed, but if you want to do something better and be better, then you just have to keep moving.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's such a good point because like within life, the main thing that is like forever, that's perpetual, is change. We're all like gaining new information, learning new things. So of course we're going to change. Like we may have made mistakes in the past. Like you said before, obviously I haven't like done something super racist or anything like that. But yeah, our opinions may change, and with it, so do we.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think those are good points to make. I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed recording this with you guys. Thanks for coming on and joining me.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm
Thank you
glad
for
that we are able to, yes, of course. I'm glad that we were able to make this work. And thank you to my listeners for listening to this. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And like I said, I'm not really sure if it's going to be as consistent, but hopefully it will be. So I would like to say see you next Saturday, but yeah, we'll see. But hopefully. Anyways, again, thank you guys for listening to this. And that's the gist. Bye.